Chapter 1. Plane crashes into the sea. You make a price. Lin Xiaoyan leaned back, folded her hands, and her beautiful eyes shone with cold light. Noble, cold, and inhumane. It really looks like. Gu Moli looked a little dazed. For a moment, he gritted his teeth and faced the blade firmly, his expression not humble and silent. 50 million. Haha. With a sneer, the contempt in Lin Xiaoyan's eyes was so obvious. 50 million. You really dare to say that? She was born as beautiful as a lotus as snow, and she would conquer the whole country. But so what? After all, you have nothing but this face. Gu Moli looked at Lin Xiaoyan's arrogant posture and was not angry, but smiled. The smile is fragrant and stunning. The look on his face was calm and calm. He was not angry and proud. He looked like a queen. You should know that in his heart, I am more than this worth. You! Lin Xiaoyan suddenly stood up, her whole body shaking with anger, her chest heaving. A girl who has just grown up is so arrogant. Who gave you the confidence? Lin Xiaoyan's face turned red and white, then turned white and red again. She stabilized for a moment, breathed out slowly, closed her eyes, and rubbed her temples. That's all. After all, it was Yuan'er who supported her in her heart, and she really should have such confidence. What's more, with this childish look on his face, in the future, well, when she opened her eyes again, Lin Xiaoyan's eyes were no longer turbulent, and they were as calm as if the previous tense situation had never happened. He slowly sat down and pursed his lips. Okay, I can promise you, but I hope you can keep your word. Otherwise, you should know the methods of the Lung family. You can't afford to offend someone alone. One person. The sudden stabbing pain in her chest made Gu Moli feel suffocated. She raised her eyes. Her butterfly wing eyelashes flashed imperceptibly. Her red lips parted lightly, and she said in a voice like glass, I know. That's good. Lin Xiaoyan picked up the pen and filled in a series of numbers on the invoice. After taking the money, don't appear in front of Yuan'er from now on. Miss Wang Gu, take care of yourself. Gu Moli's small hands hanging on both sides were clenched tightly, revealing a forced unwillingness and stubbornness. She raised her head to meet those very similar eyes and promised softly, okay. Lin Xiaoyan took a deep look at Gu Moli, and at that moment, she felt sympathy in her heart, but it could only be sympathy. He stood up slowly, stepped out his noble long legs, kick, kick, and stare, accompanied by the crisp footsteps, and finally disappeared from sight. Gu Moli looked at the departing figure, feeling stunned, and murmured, Baby, that is your grandma. She is very beautiful, right? She lowered her head, touched her flat belly, looked at the thin invoice in her hand, and smiled softly. Baby, Grandma gave you a big red envelope. Moreover, she is much gentler than Grandpa, but this may be the last time you meet. The scene of the negotiation the day before yesterday suddenly jumped out of my mind. Gu Moli shook his head, trying to get rid of this bad mood. Sad. Not good for the baby in the belly. Thousands of meters high in the sky. Outside the window is a blue sky, and the snow-white clouds look soft, but I don't know if they will be so sweet that they will become cloying and bitter. The music in my ears was playing one after another. When the 99th song was played, a song suddenly jumped out. Dream Wedding. Almost uncontrollably, Gu Moli's tears rolled down one by one, like broken pearls. The originally pleasant notes now really looked like a man-eating ghost, cutting out her heart with a knife and sucking her heart blood. It really hurts and makes my heart and liver tremble. She listened to the song completely, which was regarded as a memorial. From now on, there is a grave hidden in my heart, and a widow lives there. He is aloof, cold, and arrogant, a passionate battlefield hero. He does not like noise and is a lonely young man in the prosperous age of youth. He is deeply affectionate and is the love of this life that no one can compare with. He may also be the best father in the world. But from now on, he does not belong to me. He sniffed, blinked his eyes, and seemed to be making the humblest protest. Lung Hanyuan, let's be safe on our own for the rest of our lives. But why is it July 7th? It's really annoying. Suddenly, the plane shook violently. Gu Moli's heart thumped, and a strong uneasiness swept over him. What followed was an even stronger turbulence on the plane, accompanied by the passengers' horrified shouts, one wave after another. Ah! Ah! Dear passengers, we have been hit by violent airflow. Please sit tight in your seats. Fasten your seatbelts. Stay calm. Don't panic and don't move around without permission. The flight attendant's deep voice suddenly sounded in the cabin like a life-saving straw. Everyone was holding on tightly, holding their breath and suppressing it, holding in the breath fiercely. However, the excessively frightened screams still sounded from time to time. After more than 10 minutes of turbulence, the plane finally calmed down. Almost unanimously, everyone let out a long sigh of relief. However, the next moment, Gu Moli realized something was wrong. The clouds outside the window were actually moving upward. This is over the sea with clear skies. Why should we lower our flight altitude for no reason? And it's so fast? Could it be there's an oil leak? With a boom, this thought flashed through his mind, and Gu Moli was instantly out of breath. Finally, other passengers in the cabin also noticed something strange. The altitude of the plane continued to drop, and the speed became faster and faster, like some kind of free fall. Ah! Ah! Men, women, old people, children, every face was extremely distorted, roaring and crying. Even the flight attendant who suppressed his fear finally burst into tears helplessly. There is a shadow of death has arrived in the cabin. Seeing that she was getting closer and closer to the sea, Gu Moli's lips became paler and her body couldn't stop trembling. Her hands tightly grabbed the down jacket in her arms, and her heart fell to the bottom of the sea in advance. The probability is 1 in 4.7 million. Why don't you take a look at the almanac first when you go out? The hoarse roars of others continued in my ears. It was like a collective bungee jump with a large number of people, but sadly, there was no safety chain behind them to protect their lives. At the moment of death, Gu Moli closed her eyes calmly. Farewell, Lung Hanyuan, the love of my life. The next moment, there was a loud boom, and the plane hit the sea hard, setting off a huge wave. The sudden momentum made Gu Moli's chest hurt, and she instinctively shrank into a ball. The surging seawater first overwhelmed the lives in the front row, accompanied by the howling of ghosts and wolves. Immediately afterwards, he also attacked the pale girl. In just a few seconds, the cabin was filled with seawater. The tattered carcass, tied with struggling bodies one after another, slowly sank, as if it took everyone into some kind of illusion. A yuan, is it too late to say something now? However, if you don't say it, it might be too late. No, it's too late. Actually, I always believed that nothing happened between you and her. After all, the trap was full of loopholes, but there were still cracks in our hearts. In fact, I believe in you and always have believed in you. You know, they say that I am a powerful woman, and that if you have nothing, then it is impossible for me to love your skin. Ha, how funny! They underestimate your skin too much. Even if you only have the skin, I will still fall in love with you. What's more, you have always been my hero. After all, as long as it is what you really want, you can get it in the end. This makes me so proud of you. They also said that women like me are actually the most afraid of hardship. Because I've been neglected since childhood, I long for an effortless life. Oh, in fact, they were right about this. Really, as long as you are by my side, what I want is always within my reach. But that doesn't mean I can't get it. But they just think so. You must be wondering, why did I compromise so easily? Because I am pregnant with a child, 2 children. So I have to get out of here. They don't like me, and you are likely to completely abandon the already thin family relationship for me and the child, and I can't bear to make you sad. They don't like me, and they may very well choose to abort the mother and keep the child, so that the child will become a wretch, without a mother as soon as he is born, and I am even more reluctant to let go of the child. They don't like me, and the most cruel thing is that they will directly deprive the child of the right to come into this world. I can't accept this. I can't afford to gamble either. So I ran away, far away, but why did it become like this? All efforts were suddenly in vain. Why is this? Why? Gu Moli's consciousness became more and more blurred, and he was about to lose his vital signs. Suddenly, that familiar figure appeared in front of her eyes. The girl stretched out her hand, trying her best to touch it. I'm scared. The man held it with a smile on his face. Don't be afraid. I'll accompany you. In an instant, a flash of lightning flashed across my brain. The girl's straight body suddenly moved again. She clearly felt a powerful force in her arms stubbornly lifting her up. The desire to live is awakened. The girl's eyes suddenly opened. She pressed her right hand, and with a kata sound, the confinement was suddenly lifted. Then the powerful buoyancy pulled her up. The next moment, the dazzling sunlight reflected in the eyes, the corners of the mouth curved, and the person fainted. Bai Hao and Lan Xiao were waiting in the waiting room, bored. Playing on your mobile phone for a long time is also very tiring. Bai Hao turned to look at Lan Xiao beside him, a little worried. Lan Maozi, do you think the boss's plan can succeed? Lan Xiao didn't even raise his head and continued to play the game. What do you think? Choke. Can you chat? But in order to ensure that Ollie Girl can go abroad safely, the boss has really taken great pains to pull this trick. I just don't know if the boss's psychological misophobia will break out at the wedding, and he will make a fool of himself on the spot and ruin the wedding. The speaker has no intention. The listener has intention. Bai Hao was so anxious that he jumped up from his chair. You damn cat. Success or failure depends on this one move. How can you just give up? This Go Jian can persist for 3 years, even though he's been lying low and hiding his courage. I don't believe that the boss can't survive these few months. Lan Xiao turned his head to look at Bai Hao, who was overreacting and couldn't help but roll his eyes. I'm just saying it. Even you know the truth. How can the boss not see through it? Then you underestimate the boss. Let's just say that the boss is still in his infancy. If he really gets involved with the old man, he will lose all his achievements. Girl, Ollie doesn't know how she will suffer. Don't worry, she is just showing off her temper. Damn, I'm scared to death. Bai Hao sat back and curled his lips. But then again, why are we waiting at the airport so early? Why else? Just to make our boss feel at ease. Don't you think the boss is like that? He's thousands of kilometers away, and his soul is almost gone. Ha, you only dare to have opinions behind the boss's back, but I'm not as brave as you in person. Bai Hao looked contemptuous. That's a stupid dog to say to your face. You. Bai Hao suppressed his internal injuries. Dear passengers, the GT9 **** flying from Xiaocheng, China to Iceland suffered a flight accident and crashed near the island in the high seas of the Atlantic Ocean. The lives and deaths of all passengers and crew are currently unknown. What? Bai Hao and Lan Xiao stood up suddenly and turned to look at the big screen at the airport. It suddenly showed that GT9 **** had a crash. Ollie's plane crashed. It's over. The boss's life is gone. Bai Hao shouted with a cry. The two fell down on the chairs, their eyes pointed and their limbs weak. 10 seconds later, the airport completely exploded. The cries were loud, and the chaos was. Chapter 2. Crazy at the Wedding. Xiaotin's Castle, Xiaocheng's only European medieval antique manor located in the suburbs and covering an area of several thousand acres. Medieval oil paintings hang on the walls inside the castle. Various carved antique furniture are arranged in a unique style. Exquisite silverware emits a cold light. Stretching from the lawn outside the castle to the hall inside the castle, every corner is decorated with delicate pink roses. The entire auditorium is decorated solemnly without losing the classicism and romance of the European royal family. On the bandstand of the auditorium, the famous pianist Jacques was playing the song Dream Wedding with all his heart. A grand wedding is being held. The guests in the audience are well-known aristocratic dignitaries in Xiaocheng, and the newcomers on the stage are Leng Hanyuan, the first nobleman in Xiaocheng, and Yang Qianmei, the first socialite. A suit hand-customized by an Italian famous brand makes the man's already outstanding appearance appear taller and majestic. A French custom-made luxury wedding dress makes the woman's already beautiful face even more stunning and charming. If you ignore the cold light shining in the groom's eyes at this moment and just notice the radiant smile of the bride, you will definitely think that this is an unparalleled wedding with a talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. However, no. The priest with a full beard and a white robe held a microphone and looked forward. Now, I want to ask both of you the same question. This is a long question. Please answer after listening. Mr. Leng Hanyuan, would you like to marry Ms. Yang Qianmei as your wife, live with her according to the teachings of the Bible, become one with her in the presence of God, love her, comfort her, respect her, and protect her, just as you love yourself? Be loyal to her in sickness and in health, rich or poor, until you leave this world? Every time the priest recited an oath to the people present, it was one more sentence to remind the couple of the sanctity and inviolability of marriage. Because of this, every time he said one more sentence, the man's cold eyes became colder, so that by the last moment, they were already ice cold. A minute passed, and the groom still remained silent. The entire auditorium was so quiet that only the music was playing. All the guests couldn't help but look up and saw the man covered in cold air, like a trapped beast that wanted to break out of the cage, exuding a strong aura of humiliation, unwillingness, and silent protest. Everyone's heart was hanging in the air. The pastor on the stage looked at the groom, his gray-blue eyes flashing under the light, but his mouth was slightly open, but he didn't say a word. The bride looked at the groom, who had been in a stalemate opposite, and the smile she had been holding on could no longer hold back. Faced with the burning eyes of everyone in the audience, after hesitating for a moment, she still stretched out her hand to remind him. Unexpectedly, he was violently pushed away by the man, as if he accidentally touched something that disgusted him. The embarrassment, humiliation, and confusion that followed this action made the pretty face of the woman sitting as the bride turn extremely pale in an instant. The groom's disrespectful behavior ultimately angered his father, Leng Xiaotian, the head of the Leng family. Leng Xiaotian, who was leaning on a cane, glared at the willful Leng Hanyuan on the stage with a face as dark as a drop of ink, and then uttered a sentence that was obviously meaningful, very resounding. You honor, only by keeping your promise can I guarantee my promise otherwise. Leng Xiaotian's advice failed to make the man succumb, but instead aroused the long-standing resentment in his heart. The terrifying aura that kept strangers away was like a blizzard coming, oppressing everyone present to the point of breathlessness. As the groom's mother and Leng Xiaotian's wife, Lin Xiaoyan felt really uncomfortable when she saw her child's resistance and struggle. But Jizi Emo Ruomu, how can another woman squeeze into her child's heart at this moment? Suddenly, that cute little face appeared in Lin Xiaoyan's mind again, as beautiful as a peach and a plum, charming when she moved, and with an exquisite heart with 7 orifices that could not be hidden. For a moment, her eyes flickered and she was slightly moved, but when she looked back and saw her husband, who was determined to have his own way, he swallowed all the words that came to his lips again. Standing at the very edge, the middle-aged man with a solemn face and a heroic look was Leng Hanyuan's commander when he was in the army, and he was Yang Qianmei's biological father, Yang Kuan. I saw that Chief Yang had a complex expression on his face. He was torn and forbearing, and there were deep conflicts hidden in his deep and solemn eyes. One side is his most beloved daughter, and the other side is his most proud soldier. No matter what he does, one side is destined to be injured. How can a twisted melon be sweet? Finally, the guests who had been waiting for a long time became impatient and started talking quietly. Leng Xiaoyan's patience was completely pushed to the limit by this commotion, and the veins in his hands holding the crutches bulged, and they were shaking slightly. How can I, the Leng family, become a joke in the eyes of others? Impossible. Yuan, a call came from hell, but Leng Xiaotian was interrupted by a sudden intrusion of noise before he could speak out in a hurry. With a bang on the door, Dudu rushed in with stumbling steps. Before the guests could react, Dudu's tearful roar resounded throughout the auditorium. Brother, Ollie crashed. GT9 ****** crashed at sea. The moment the brain finished processing the information, everyone was stunned. Even the pianist stopped playing. The air seemed to be frozen, and time seemed to stand still at this moment. And at this moment, the man on the stage looked like a stone sculpture that was suddenly struck by thunder in the vast desert. It was shattered into pieces in an instant and turned into a corpse. The words that came to Leng Xiaoyan's mouth were turned back into his stomach. His face turned pale, and his eyes were bleak. Lin Xiaoyan first turned to look at her child's face. It looked like a heart had been dug out and crushed into pieces. Mother and son were connected, and it felt like a huge stone was stuck in her chest, weighing her down so much that she couldn't breathe. Chief Yang's face also suddenly became confused, and his eyes became dim and unclear. On the contrary, the bride on the stage was the last one to react. That woman is dead. He immediately looked up at the man opposite him. His entire face was extremely gray, his eyes were blurry, as if his blood had been drained instantly, and he had become a walking zombie without a soul. Only she can make you look like this. From now on, I really have no chance to drive her out of your heart. In the past, because she lived in your heart, your cold eyebrows became rippled. From now on, there will only be a grave left in your heart, and in it lies a dead person who can never compare to me. Tears flowed down uncontrollably, and the woman's chest seemed to have been stabbed with needles, dense and painful. Du, who had been watching the groom's reaction, looked at his silent brother and couldn't accept his indifference at the moment. He thought that the man would be angry, howl, hysterical, and miserable after hearing the news. However, no. The groom just stood there quietly, neither sad nor happy, neither angry nor angry, just like a dead corpse. Du couldn't stand it any longer. The anger bursting out of his chest made him rush forward like a cheetah, grabbed the man's collar, and roared uncontrollably, "Leng Hanyuan, your girl is dead. She is dead." The groom's eyes were still unfocused, but Du was already filled with anger and punched the man in the face hard. "What are you talking about? Do you still want to have a bullshit wedding like this?" The man was beaten so hard that he staggered back 2 steps, as if he had just woken up and murmured, "Dead." Then he grinned and giggled drunkenly, as if he was suffering from a nightmare. "Leng Hanyuan, you are still not a human being." Du grabbed the man's collar and shook him desperately. "Wake up. Ollie is dead. The woman you love most is dead. Did you hear that?" The man pushed Du away with a palm and staggered down the steps. "I know." "Leng Hanyuan, what are you doing?" Du roared as he looked at the man who was walking out in vain. "What?" He paused, as if he was thinking about something important. "Of course it's marriage." After saying that, he seemed to have found his goal, and his steps became faster. Du was stunned, then reacted instantly, rushed up and hugged the man's hand. "Brother, I was wrong. You must not be stupid." The man was blocked and couldn't move. He turned around and glanced at Du coldly. He immediately took out his palm. Du took a few steps back and hit the corner of the table hard. Hiss! The pain made him take a breath. "No, I have to stop him. This man is crazy. I've already lost one friend, and I can't afford to lose another." Du, who knew the man's thoughts, rushed forward again, hugging the man's legs tightly, like a desperate guardian, howling loudly, "Brother, don't be impulsive. Calm down. If Ollie were here, she would never want you to be like this." It was okay that Dudu didn't mention that person. As soon as the man heard the girl's name, the last remaining sanity collapsed instantly. He lowered his head as if looking at a dead thing, glanced at Dudu, and roared, "Get out!" At the same time, he kicked his feet violently 5 times in a row, and blood oozed from the corner of Dudu's mouth. The last time, he flew out like a kite with a broken string and hit the ground hard. His whole body convulsed, and his face was ashen. "Brother, you murdered him?" Then another mouthful of bright red blood spurted out and spread all over the floor. This sudden bloodshed frightened all the guests. Lin Xiaoyan suddenly woke up. Her face turned pale, and her voice was trembling and sharp. "Security! Call the security! Stop! Yuan, you must stop him. He is going to seek death." A word that wakes up the dreamer. After realizing it later, Leng Xiaotian let out an earth-shattering roar. "Quick dash! Stop him!" In an instant, dozens of security guards filed out from all directions, surrounding the man. The man's footsteps paused. His bloodshot eyes revealed the ferocity of a bloodthirsty maniac. The next moment, his iron fist came out and went on a killing spree. Ah! Ouch! Ah! The guests watched helplessly as bodies flew into the air one after another, and then hit the ground hard one after another. The screams accompanied by broken bones were more tragic and tragic in the church, as if they were about to break through the roof and break through the sky. I was so frightened that I was completely speechless. Dudu could no longer stand up and could only watch helplessly as the crazy lion sacrificed its soul with its blood. After 10 minutes, all the security guards fell. All those who participated in the battle also suffered heavy casualties. Yang Kuan, who finally fell, looked at the man's determined back and shouted with his last breath, "Leng Hanyuan, stop. That girl is dead. Let yourself go. Let your family go." The man turned a deaf ear and stepped on the road of no return with sonorous steps and blood-stained fists, like a general going to die. At the other end of the road, the man laughed bloodthirstily. "Ha ha 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 ha!" In the smile, the mountains and rivers were broken, the stars and the moon were dim. Leng Xiaotian felt the fear he had never experienced before. As long as anyone stops him, I will give him money. Give him endless money. Hurry dash. Stop him. "You honor." Lin Xiaoyan screamed piercingly, then fell down hard and fainted. The auditorium instantly became chaotic. The man finally broke through the obstacles and ran out of the castle. The one he chased after desperately was the bride in a wedding dress. The old castle returned to its usual quiet state, except for some painful groans. Moya, who burst into tears, walked step by step towards the huddled Dudu, squatted down, and said in a hoarse and desperate voice, "How are you?" Dudu suddenly raised his head and stared at the girl opposite him with his red eyes. "Moya, your best sister is gone, and you want to abduct my best buddy, too?